Hello, and welcome to another episode of Breaking Into Cybersecurity. Today, we have our very special guest, John Delacruz. He will be sharing his story from military to information security analyst. But before we get there, those of you following us on LinkedIn, please follow myself, follow John. That way, if you have questions after the fact, you can reach out to us and ask us. For those of you following us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button down at the bottom, hit that notification button. That way, the next time we come on live, you will hear us. And then for those of you on podcast after the fact, feel free to share us with all your friends and family because we do need individuals from all sorts of different backgrounds in cybersecurity to help us have a diverse population that are all trying to solve this complex problem of cyber today. So with that, let's get to John's story. John, I think I met you almost a year ago now, and you were in the military approaching the end of your term. What's that transition like?
To say it best, it was one of the most challenging, life-altering events in my life. Is really the best way I can put it for me personally. But then my journey was a bit different than many, and I think every transition is a bit different. In my case personally, I was leaving service. We were having our first kid, and doing a career pivot and learning something completely foreign to me. Going as I was exiting service. So for me, that was quite the challenge, but here I am today. So it's been quite rewarding.
And as you prepared to do that transition, what do you do? How do you approach it? You have a year notice, or is it less? Or how much notice do you get?
Well, for the most part, a lot of the service members, they will know when their service ends. Unless something something just out of nowhere just goes out, where they have to leave suddenly, such as a medical reason for them to exit. But for the most part, for me, for example, I knew when I was going to get out, and it was just a matter of deliberate planning. I had to go in there and know what I wanted to do, when I wanted to do it, and making the time to go do it. That was a tough part, because the military doesn't really give you a whole lot of time to do what you need. You just have to make that time to take care of you.
And how did you figure out what you wanted to do? I know that's a challenge for many individuals transitioning out of the military.
I still think about it. I look back on it, on that journey. I had no idea what I was doing. I had zero clue on what I was doing. I think for me, it was just kind of going through the motions and talking to people like you, Chris. I mean, I think you, among so many other people in the industry, have been so invaluable to me. The information you provided, I took bits and pieces, and I piecemealed a lot of the information that I gathered from a lot of industry professionals just to get an idea of what it was that I maybe wanted to do. And really, I owe where I am now, kind of the vector that I got from really James Azar. He really set me on a path. It's like, hey, we just had a conversation one day. He's like, hey, you ever think about GRC? I had no idea what that was. So I did some homework, looked into it, and again, the whole way through, had no idea what I was doing. I was just kind of going through the motions and just talking to people and having conversation.
And so you kind of got an idea now of your path, what options did you have available to you? I know individuals transitioning out of the military, there's several different resources available, like Skullbridge, training and things like that. What did your path consist of? What did you utilize?
Oh my gosh. For me, it was, um, gosh, looking back at it, it was a lot of attending as many live streams or recordings of listening to people talk. And for me, I knew that DoD Skullbridge was an option for me. Um, I didn't know what I was going to do with it, because the only thing that I had under my belt, in terms of experience, was a degree in cybersecurity. I had a bachelor's in it, or have a bachelor's in it. I have 0 certs still to this day. And so I was really nervous. I was really just, I didn't think that I was going to um, be able to go anywhere really. So when I stumbled upon DoD Skullbridge, I knew I wanted it. I didn't know how to do it. I ended up talking to some folks who led me eventually to the hiring manager that I work for today. And it just ended up being a conversation which turned into, okay, let's get you to HR, and begin that process. Um, for me, the Air Force bit, because I retired out of the Air Force last year. Um, it kind of was pretty easy in terms of, I had one that was already approved through the DoD Skullbridge program. Um, and it was just a lot of do this, take care of the paperwork, and it was a lot of waiting. And I wasn't very patient. So it was kind of like, I really want to get into it. I really want to experience what the industry is all about, because I had no idea. I didn't know what to expect. And everybody's experiences varied so widely. It made me nervous and almost a little bit scared. But yeah, eventually I landed the DoD Skullbridge. I got approved. I interviewed in January, but I didn't start the Skullbridge until August, because of my commitment in the Air Force, and the times didn't work out. But luckily, the hiring manager and my employer was able to work with me, and I am so grateful for the opportunity, because it's obviously landed me here.
Did your employer already have a structured program for SkillsBridge, or was this something that you had to work with them through to kind of get it set up and to have the HR processes work with that?
So they already have or had a program in place. But the track that they had was geared more toward a different line of work, if you will. I was the first DoD Skullbridge candidate or fellow in the information security group. So they were kind of winging it, but they did a fantastic job, kind of using me as, well, let's see how this goes. And obviously I was willing to work with them. And we kind of gave the pointers, and now we've got our second DoD Skullbridge candidate on board now. So that's fantastic. So it's starting to grow. It's getting more robust. So for that, it's amazing. So we're still definitely working on it.
Look at you giving back already. So as you did this Skullbridge program, let's take a step back. Did you interview with other companies? Did you continue your search outside, or once you had this great interview with this company that was interested in you and they had to work out the paperwork from January to August, did you continue searching in the meantime, or were you like, this is set in stone and I don't need to worry?
That was the hard part, because I definitely, I felt a commitment, and I think that's what kind of the military does to you. You've served for X amount of years, and that commitment is there. It doesn't really leave you, at least for me. And so I felt that need to remain committed to the company at the time. Granted, I was still kind of in between, but a part of me, the more cautious side, uh, still sought out folks. I still networked where I needed to, just in case something fell through. Because at the end of the day, it's about me, and you know, I like to keep my contingencies there just in case something were to happen. Um, but luckily, that I didn't need to call on my contingencies at all. Oh, you still have mute.
The one time. That's good that you have contingency plans in place. So as you went through the SkillsBridge process, what were some of the requirements of it? Like, how did it work? What was the process like?
Again, I can only speak for the Air Force. The other services are just a bit different. I think the Air Force is a lot more rigid, I think, because they usually have a set of rules and this is what you have to follow. And again, luckily for me, the company was already pre-approved. They've been already doing the work. Granted, it was a different track for a fellowship for Skullbridge, but everything was already there. Everything was in place. So it was just a matter of me taking the time to go do the paperwork, connect with folks, have those conversations, and schedule those interviews and things like that. But as far as any legwork for the Skullbridge itself, just an application.
Was there continuous education? Like, what was the ramp up period like? And then what were some of the ways that they used you? Because Skullbridge is kind of like a internship program, right? If you look at it as a analogy. So how were you utilized to bring value?
Oh my gosh. I hit the ground running. I didn't go in there, and I've heard horror stories like of people just being, sat there to file papers, and that's what they were used for, unfortunately. In my case, I actually got given access to the different solutions and tools that the company uses. And I really started shadowing folks, and I was having one-on-ones with my director, with the manager, kind of keep me on track, see how things are going, because again, I was the first one in the information security group. They wanted to kind of follow my path and see how things were going, because I was kind of in really, I was in a new place for them. And so my experience was phenomenal. They took the time to train me. They showed me the tricks of the trade, if you will, on performing risk assessments, because that's where I'm at. I'm in third-party risk management, and what I do there specifically, kind of what I'm expected to do. And then I think maybe about a month in, after onboarding, doing all the training, I started to do my own risk assessments. Granted, it was a small volume, but I had training wheels on.
Wow, nice.
So I actually started really doing work, and it was quite the experience, and it was very insightful because I had no idea. I had no idea the level of work that goes into third-party risk. And I just continued that on. And now I'm still doing the same thing. It's just more robust now.
Nice. And did they have like the documentation for you to follow? Or did you have to like create that as you went along, as you're creating this for other Skullbridge?
So it's very unique to the team. The team did have an onboarding process, but again, because it was Skullbridge, It wasn't so different, but there were some details that just needed to be tweaked. But overall, it was just a good program. It's definitely helped me get to where I needed to be.
Well, let's talk about that. So, what were the gaps between where you were at the start of the SkillsBridge program to where you needed to be, and how did you close that?
I'm still closing that gap. Um, because as I said, I only had a degree in cybersecurity. I had no certs. I still have no certs. I'm actually working my way to earning my Security Plus cert at the moment. So I'm studying. What I'm finding is that, the beauty of what I'm doing right now in preparation for Security Plus is that I'm actually seeing a lot of the things that the book talks about, because that's the best way I learn, is that, I read a little bit, I see it, awesome, and it sticks.
Mhm.
And there were some other gaps too that were closed, and that was understanding third-party risk in general. And the company, they went in, and actually my director said, "Hey, you should take this this kind of intro
Mhm.
certification." And I was like, "Okay." And they paid for it. I took it, got it done in a couple of weeks. Very easy, but it gave me that foundation for what was expected of me um, on the team. And obviously, there are more certifications, and I don't think they ever stop really. Um, but they're there, and I'm taking it one step at a time, because I'm learning that I need to um, just take it slow, take it day by day, and don't try to force feed everything as in a short amount of time.
So, what was that cert? Because there's, I don't see many people talk about their path to GRC. Everyone wants to be a SOC analyst or a pen tester, but you wanted, and you knew you wanted to go into GRC. So, what was that entry level cert that you took that kind of helped you get that foundation?
Oh my gosh, I I have to go back and find the cert, but if I remember correctly, it was the name escapes me right now, but it was along the lines of, no, the site is called Shared Assessments.
Okay.
Um, they have an intro level certification, but I didn't know about it till I got onto the team. And then they have some more advanced certifications. Um, I think it's CTPRP and CTPRA. And unfortunately, at the moment, I cannot remember what the acronym stands for, but I think
Mhm.
it's Certified Third Party Risk Assessor. Um, and I can't remember what the RP is at the moment, but I'll definitely be looking at doing that once I've got my Security Plus all squared away behind me.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Okay. I'll share this. I pulled up the website, and I'll share this in the link for our audience. Um, so that's great, because I think oftentimes you only hear about like the core certifications, like the ones from IC squared or ISACA, but now you have like more tailored certifications in different areas. So that, excuse me, that's pretty cool. So sharing the website on the screen, it is sharedassessments.org for those of you listening and would like to follow along yourself. Go ahead and check it out there. I guess free advertising. Um, so what are some of the what are some of the other things that you do to catch up, other than like studying for the general certifications, to kind of close some of those other gaps that you might identify?
Oh my gosh. So at least for this team that I'm working with, um, the amount of things that I'm learning is quite vast, really. I thought it was just vendor risk management. I'm going to go here and, talk to vendors and everything, but it's so much more. We're looking at OSINT skills, having to looking back at, how does this vendor have this sort of relationship with other vendors, and what does that look like? So we have to apply a little bit of OSINT. And then you also have, I think it was something along the lines of just looking at what the different risks are, using the different tools, and what news is staying current with what's going on out there. I think, and I mentioned James earlier, but James Azar has a really good daily feed on news feed that he does for 15 minutes. I usually get a lot of my information from him. Jerry Osier, I get a lot of information from him on his morning stuff. So it's just whenever I have time, but usually I'll catch up on the after the fact on the replays because I do stay very busy.
No, but you make a very valid point, especially in the role that you're in. The role that you're in doing third-party risk assessments, you focus less on what's happening in the organization, but more so on the hundreds or thousands of vendors that service your organization. And if one of them gets popped and it's in the news, that can help you with preparing the internal teams that, hey, this is what I know about the risk from this organization, and this is how we could potentially help remediate that.
Exactly. And I don't know, I find a lot of it's just a sense of fulfillment, really, a sense of mission for me personally, because coming from that military background, there's always been that mission that needed to be taken care of. There was always something there. And now that I'm here in cybersecurity, it's that sense of mission is still there, and we want to protect, at least for me, I want to protect our organization. I want to be able to add value by, making sure that I'm doing my due diligence. Am I asking the right questions? Which, by the way, I didn't realize how much communication skill is needed to engage with our vendor partners, and the professionalism that's required to be able to talk with them, and the empathy needed, because maybe they feel like they don't have enough stuff to protect their environment. So that goes a long way with the partners, because you can come down and beat them over the head. Oh, you need a SOC, you need a SOC audit, or you need to do your pen tests, or we're gonna, terminate the partnership. But it's not like that. It's definitely a skill that I'm fine tuning now, on top of all the technical skills that I'm picking up along the way.
Well, that's great, because again, I think a lot of people focus on the hard skills. What are the hard skills that you need to learn? And they focus, the risk assessment and how to run this pen test tool and all of that. But they forget about the communication skill. They forget about the collaboration skills, because working with a vendor, it's a two-way street. You have to be able to work with them, and they have to work with you. And while you might have the upper hand, if you're seen as taking advantage of that, that could sever the relationship as well.
Oh, exactly. And also, the way I see it too is that I see myself as more of an ambassador, because I represent the company in some form or fashion. So they won't see me as, the assessor or John Delacruz or whomever. They're going to see me as the person that works over at the company, and be like, oh, the company did this.
Yeah.
And that's how I've translated that same sort of mindset from the military to what I'm doing now, is that, we represent something maybe a bit bigger than ourselves, whether or not we realize it.
And let's kind of pivot this back over to, you mentioned like John Delacruz, the brand John Delacruz. You've shared your journey with those following behind you. You've given back, even though you were only maybe one step ahead. What are some of the recommendations that you have based on your journey for those that might be following in your footsteps, that might be listening to this at some time in the future?
It's pretty cliche from a lot of the other folks, and I think some of your other guests have probably said the same thing. You know, it's keep at it. Continue to, at least in my case, it was keep having those informational interviews. Find mentors, talk to people, and don't be afraid to get outside of your comfort zone. Because I'm learning that once you get outside your comfort zone, you start being open to new ideas, different perspectives, and then you yourself begin to grow. And I think it's valuable that you not only give back, but you take that same sort of mindset of, you know, let's help this person grow and see different perspectives and gain new insight. But I think the same should apply to you as a mentor, you know, because at least from my perspective, I don't think I would ask anybody to do something if I myself wouldn't do it. You know, and it's just really just be brave. Just find that confidence and go after it, you know.
You mentioned informational interview. Do you want to share your approach to that for others that might not know what that is or how that could help them?
Oh gosh. So I've done a couple of them leading up to the Skullbridge, and it was a matter of, so I spoke to a CISO, for example, and I connected with this person and I said, hi, you know, I saw you at, I sent a LinkedIn message with an invite, you know, one of those ones there. And I was like, hey, I saw you at a live stream. I loved what you had to say. Would love to connect and maybe learn more from you. Later on, a few weeks later, it was, we connected and I shot him a message and I asked him, hey, would you be open to having a conversation? I'm a new person. I'm trying to get into the industry and I would love to learn how you got to where you are and kind of the things that, like lessons learned on your journey, because obviously everybody's going to be a bit different. Long story short, another few weeks later, we set up some time and then we had a conversation for about 30 minutes, which went about 45 minutes at the end of it. And I learned a lot from this gentleman, from the CISO. And I'm grateful that the CISO took his time to share his experience and his approach in cybersecurity. So for that, I'm super thankful.
Wow, that's great. As we get to the end of the show, if you had one piece of sage advice for that, again, person watching this, following in your footsteps, what would that be?
It's so vast. I would say just get after it. Know who you are and what you want, but look for those mentors that fit you, and don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry, this isn't going to work. But because I've done it a couple of times, and you have to look out after yourself is what it comes down to. But at the same time, help those coming up behind you. And I think that's my way of saying thank you.
Wow, absolutely great. I would definitely encourage that, because I mean, that's what this podcast is all about, right? Sharing the advice that someone who made it through can give back and can share to others. So, John, really appreciate your time for sharing your journey, sharing your story, and hopefully this can help other Air Force or military veterans transitioning through and interested in GRC. Folks, thank you for joining us. Follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Twitter as well, and subscribe on YouTube. Hit that notification button, and then you'll see us next time we go live. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your Friday.